bei Facebook starten. Hi, Adam.
Okay. Good morning.
Yeah, for you, it's early.
Yeah, I just got up.
We done baked this cake today here, though.
Oh my, I'm sure.
No, I don't want to share this on my timeline. I want to share it in our group. This is where I have to pay attention. So it's streaming live directly into the group, not onto my timeline. Hey, Angelica, good morning.
Hey.
Vic looks has. Did you have your coffee, Vic?
Yes, I've had my coffee.
It's midday though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have no water. They're working on the building air conditioning.
Oh my.
I have a bathtub full of water, 2 pails, and about 20 liters of water on my counter.
Goodness gracious, how long are you expecting it to?
From 8 this morning till 5 o'clock this afternoon.
All right. Okay. I'm going to stop this because it's not working. This Zoom, is not going into the Facebook group again. Adam's getting all hooked up on 2 screens.
Okay, I just got my phone on. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna put it in my neat and nifty phone holder here. Ooh, with a gooseneck. And but now I have to hold on. How do I do this?
Touch the screen. Maybe it'll show up in the upper left-hand corner.
Oh, there it is. You flip the camera around.
There you go.
So you can do this business.
Yeah.
But it's showing me too much. How do I'm sorry, Jeanine. I should have vetted this with you beforehand.
You know, I remembered just now that I didn't offer to do a little trial run with you. You were so competent. So take your time because I'm still kind of hoping Maria should be coming, and there's Abby. Birgit said she's coming later, and I'm still waiting for the live stream to load. It's just really slow. Maybe everybody's trying to live stream today.
Adam,
I also had problems logging on, so I think it's just Facebook. I don't know.
Okay.
Adam,
Zoom,
we
sorry.
share a close friend, or we share a friend, Chris
But which one?
Palamita.
Oh, Palometta, yes. Great guy. Nice guy.
Chris was my second oboe at McGill in orchestra.
Oh, really?
When I was doing my master's, and he was doing his undergrad on modern, and then he finished his undergrad and went immediately into his master's with Wash.
Oh, awesome. Was Bruce teaching at McGill when you were there?
No, and actually so this is my big confession of stupidity. I never actually met Bruce. Bruce was there. Bruce was teaching, but not at McGill. I never actually had a chance to talk to him.
Oh.
I took a lesson with him. So it was like my complete ignorance. Well, I came out of Western Canada, out of Alberta. So
Yeah.
Baroque was a period, not an instrument.
Yeah. Well, it's a shame. He was a really lovely guy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's leave it at that, or I'm going to start to cry.
Well, and when I started taking lessons from Wash in 2011 or 2012, I had just bought an oboe, the Anschuti, the
441 or the
Paul van der Linden that was Chris's.
Yeah. Okay,
And
cool.
then I started taking lessons from Wash in the aforementioned person who we're not going to talk about so we don't all cry, in
Okay.
his house when Wash was up to play with Ariel.
You know, I have one of those Van der Linden Anschutis, and if you like, I have a staple setup that I think actually works better than what Paul recommends, along with what Jeanine and I talked about previously. Like sometimes the maker knows best about the setup, And sometimes I don't think that's necessarily true, especially because Paul is a recorder player, you know, really. And, I mean, not to say he's not a marvelous oboe player, he is, but he trained as a recorder player, and as a result, it really affects the way that he plays the oboe.
Like,
And he makes the reed like a recorder player. So, you know, for me, it didn't work.
Matt Jenajon, another recorder player who's now a fine Baroque oboe player.
Yes.
But you can tell that he comes out of the recorder side rather than from the
Right. Well, do you still have that oboe? Because I can send you staples for it.
No, but I sold it to somebody in town here. I'll touch base with them and see if they're interested. We'll have a conversation offline instead of.
It's my opinion that Paul's setup doesn't work for anybody but Paul. And again, I really respect Paul like crazy. He's a wonderful man. I actually made a couple of oboes with him. I made a Denner copy, and he helped me make a Bauer, IG Bauer English Demore.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun, and I can honestly say he's a much better maker than I will ever be.
Cool.
He's a really good craftsman. Excellent.
Yeah, the instrument is a really nice instrument, and it was in granadilla too.
Yeah, no, I've got one. It's in granadilla. Here, hold on, I'll show it to you.
Sorry, Jeanine, we're hijacking this.
Who are you talking about?
It's all right. I'm trying very hard to get us onto Facebook. So give me another 1 minute, and then I'll give a nice introduction. I may have to give up.
But who was the guys, the person you guys were talking about? The instrument maker?
Paul van der Linden. I think Amsterdam, I'm not sure.
He's in Holland. Angelica and Beata, he was involved in the 5-day challenge.
Oh.
He came in at the end.
Is he the one who's running the Denner Make Your Own Oboe in Cambridge this summer?
Yes, and you should go. Absolutely, it's a lot of fun.
I'd love to do that. I tried looking for you last night, but are you scheduled for this year?
Well, the problem is with COVID, he has canceled everything temporarily. I had to cancel 2 classes this spring. I'm planning on doing another one in, let's say, September.
Oh, that would be great. Is it going to go run parallel or with the oboe maker?
Usually I run it right after. So we make an oboe, and then I show you how to make a reed for the oboe.
That's fantastic. I go to England very often. My daughters and granddaughter live there, so.
Okay, so this is the van der Linden
Does that look familiar?
Yeah, and basically it's grenadilla. It's a nice oboe, and then Paul is it's fake. It's not real ivory. It's this plastic stuff, and actually it looks terrible. I really wish he would use a better quality fake ivory. But what's really cool is look what he does on the bell. It's inset. It's fake ivory with inset grenadilla dots. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Just beautiful craftsmanship. And the oboe plays nicely. It's you know, to be honest, look, it's not my cup of tea. And the longer you play these things, you'll take a breath, Adam. My wife knows I'm a toy and oboe junkie. So I'm constantly trying new things. I'm buying machines or I'm buying instruments. I'm trying them for a while. And most of the time I decide it isn't really what I want, and then I sell it on to a student. Hopefully I can sell it on to a student. Sometimes they sit in my cabinets back here for years before that happens.
Mm.
And I actually do like the Paul oboe, and there's a good use for it. If I were going to do a sonatas program, especially like Handel, like English stuff, that's the perfect oboe for it. It just has that kind of big, bold English Baroque sound. You know, different Baroque oboes have different character. The Eichentopf is very sort of gentle and it's great for the Bach arias. It really has that approach. The Stainsby copies are good for sonata work and for the orchestra because they're loud, man. You And it's the same with what Steve Hammer plays on his interpretation of a saxon oboe. That is a beast. And it plays great, and it's great for the orchestra, but I don't know that I would ever want to play chamber music on it, because you could, blow everybody out of the hall with it. Oh,
Kind of
sorry,
sounds like-
I shouldn't.
Kind of sounds like what I'm dealing with on my modern. I play a Rigata J, and when I studied, I was on an AK Royale,
Yeah.
and the whole projection and character.
Oh, it's very different.
Of the Lorraine. Playing McGill Orchestra was 100 people. Like I had no problem playing over top of that orchestra with the Lorraine setup. But there's no way on a long scrape that I can do that on the Rigata. The Rigata is much more
it's not designed for that. The J is a lot like an American Laubin. It's
and
a
that's
very
what I do for my Royale.
it's a very self-contained instrument, and I think they're wonderful. I had a J. Well, I don't have one right now, but when they first came out, I went to the factory. I picked out one from a bunch with Philippe, and I really liked that instrument a lot, and it was great for chamber music. I remember using it for a concert where I did some Zelenka trios, and it was really wonderful. But you're right, that and the orchestra is not a great match. You have to pick, you got to pick your weapon, right?
Yep.
Choose your weapons for what you're doing. It's very hard to have one oboe. Well, with modern oboe, yeah, you can get with a Howarth or Lorraine, you can usually do pretty well. Or even actually the Rigata Symphony bore works.
Okay.
It's very flexible. You can do a lot of different things. On the Baroque side, though, I don't know that that's true, and that's why Baroque players or period players tend to have a cabinet full of oboes. Chris is really guilty of that. He's got like 30 oboes, man. It's insane. And in fact, he doesn't even keep them in the house. He lives next door to a bank, and he keeps all his Baroque oboes, because a lot of them are originals, in the bank vault. And it's so funny, because I was there this last summer, and we were like, oh, I want to play duets on the, whatever it was, oboe. And he said, oh, excuse me, I got to go next door and get the oboe. You got to go next door? He said, yeah, it's in the bank. And I was like, okay. So he has all of these historic, and a lot of them are not copies. Some of them are originals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even Jeanine is sort of guilty of this too. She's got, I don't know that she has many. She has 3 or 4 instruments that she goes among. She's got a saxon for when you really have to pump out the wattage in the orchestra. She's got.
I sold it, unfortunately.
Your primary one is the Wolfgang Kuba, right?
I have 2 Kuba instruments that are almost identical, and that's the reason I have 2 is a story for another day, and I have a really great Rigata story too for another day. But I go between a Pensele and the 2 Kubas.
Yeah, and the Pensele.
Things.
I think the Pensele Stainsby is an exception, because most Stainsbys I hate. It's just a personal thing. I don't like the way that most Stainsby copies work, but I think that the Pensele one is fantastic. I think it's great.
See, I think you would like this Kuba instrument I have, because it's so different from all of his other. We did a lot of work on it.
Yeah, I tried with Wolfgang. I had an instrument from him, and then I ended up getting a second top joint, and I just couldn't make it work for me.
I've been there. I bought and sold 2 of his instruments.
So, okay, well let's go ahead.
I'm going to officially open this session now. It's the Facebook is not cooperating, so I will simply do this the old-fashioned way and upload the video after the session. Maybe not until tomorrow morning, because I have my son this week. So we'll see if I'm able to, it has to render on my computer, and then I have to upload it. So it will get there. It's all there. We're being recorded right now. And I am very pleased to have Adam Shapiro here. He's joining us from the US West Coast. And I hope you all saw the interview, because it was so packed full of valuable information. I thought I ought to charge for everyone who watches it, because he just got going on some really, really good stuff. And
yeah, you can't shut me up. It's impossible.
It was great. It was great. And it was very, very easy to edit, because he speaks so eloquently. So I've brought Adam here today because I felt like reed making machines are an issue. And he many people told me I definitely need to ask Adam to do this. So he comes here, highly recommended. The strange thing is I feel like I've known Adam forever, but we really only have just met. I've never actually met him in person. So I'll be so thrilled when it finally comes, when we all meet in the French Var region for our retreat. And Adam's there too, and we can play chamber music and talk shop until we're turned blue in the face. So welcome, Adam.
Ah,
We would like to take just a couple of minutes to tell you who we are. You know me, everyone. I go through my screen, and everyone's gonna tell you where they are, who they are, where they are, and what equipment they use, and what scraping style they use. So Beata, somehow you're again up in the upper left-hand corner. So you're first.
Yes, I'm Beate Barthelmess. I'm living in Germany, and I'm recorder teacher, and since about 15 years I play Baroque oboes. The most time I've learned with Jeanine, and I scrape, yes, long scrape.
very good.
Mm-hmm.
Vic, you're next.
Vic Houle in Ottawa, Canada. Long scrape on the modern, on a Brigotage, and a Dalton Washington McLean long Eichentoff.
with the F sharp in the right place.
Yeah, that one. And essentially more or less a combination of Wash and Meg for my scrape, and now morphing into Jeanine.
Very good, thanks, Vic. Hopefully you'll get your reeds because Maria got hers, and I put them all in the. And Adam, you ought to be getting reeds soon
Yes,
too.
thank you. I got them yesterday. Thank you.
Good. You will never believe it. I paid €3.20 to send those because they're not sending packages. So I sent it as a large letter, and I
Awesome.
just dropped it into the mailbox, and I figured it would show back up here again. But they seem to go out. So Vic, yours ought to be coming soon too. And I think that means everybody got their read. So Angelika, you're the next on my screen.
Linz in Austria, and I play short scrape, modern oboe, and my shapers sparkling machines are from Willy Wettstam from Switzerland.
Very good.
And now Abby, you're up. Wait, we don't hear you.
Unmute. My name is Abby Sage. I'm currently living in Germany, but I'm from the US, from Iowa. I play a l'oreille étoilée oboe, and I use a long scrape.
Very good. Those are lovely instruments, aren't they? Wow.
I think I changed after I moved to Europe because I played on a Fox, and the Fox was a little bit too resistant and when I was playing in Europe, so I like the openness of it.
Very good.
Maria.
My name is Maria Martinez. I am from Colombia, but I'm stuck in Bloomington, Indiana for the quarantine. I arrived for a early double read workshop, but it was canceled the morning after I arrived. Anyway, I'm trying to play the Baroque oboe after not having played the oboe for many years. But during those years, I kept playing the recorder. I did an early music program at the Guildhall School of Music in London, early music and recorder. And I also played the shawms, which,
Wow.
funny enough, have helped me a lot to relax my embouchure. Okay. Oh, I play a Richard Earl, Stainsby Senior.
Very good.
And okay.
Yeah, another really fine maker, Dick Earl. Wow, those oboes are terrific. They're really very nice.
All right, the floor is yours, Adam.
Okay. Hi, folks. Well, as Jeanine mentioned, I'm Adam Shapiro, and a couple of things that you should know. I love to talk, but I'm also sort of a tool and instrument junkie. And it's for two reasons. It's just from necessity. I started out my career as a modern oboe player, played in the Houston Symphony, second oboe. And I just always had trouble getting things to work properly for me. You know, the American players traditionally have played forever the Loré and the Loré AK, and I was no exception. That's what I grew up playing on. But that oboe, it's a fine oboe. You know, the Loré company makes lovely instruments. It's just I never really could get on with it, especially playing second oboe. That oboe in the low register tends to be very flat. It tends to be very resistant. Unless it's perfectly regulated, you have a lot of problems. And I just started searching for something better. And it was the same thing with my reeds. You know, I came from a tradition where my teacher, Mr. Still, didn't really make reeds. He used to like, he was such a great player and he had such a great conception of what he wanted to sound like and do. He would just pick up anything and sound like himself. And in fact, you learned very early, don't go to a lesson with a really good reed because he's going to steal it from you. He'll take it from you. And he used to do that a lot. So, and if you wanted an extra lesson, you'd make him some reeds. So I just had to sort of figure out for me what really worked. I didn't have a lot of great instruction as a young person on making reeds. But playing professionally, you get good really fast because you have no choice. You have to have reeds. You have to have an oboe that works. So you find a solution. My initial solution for the orchestra was a Margot 901 with an American long scrape, and I did that for many years. When I got a little older, I started playing different instruments, and I started getting into Baroque playing. And also, my first Baroque teacher was Steve Hammer, who you all know. And Steve really opened up my mind to, you know, other possibilities. And I started playing on the saxon. And again, I didn't really get on with it. It suits him really well, it didn't suit me. And so I've gone through this big journey of trying everything. And along with that was just, in addition to the instruments, it was finding a reed setup and a reed technique that would work. Now again, over the years, I've gotten pretty good and fast about all of the steps and tying blanks, and I can scrape a reed in a couple of minutes. That's not a big deal for me, really. On the modern oboe, I play an American long scrape that looks like, let's see. Jeanine, can you switch the camera to
Sure.
my phone? Okay. Let's see if this is actually working. Oh, come on, Adam.
I have lost your.
Well, hold on, I'll get it. I'll get it back.
Oh, there it is. Okay. It's still spotlighted. There it goes.
Okay, so this is my American long scrape reed. And it probably looks pretty similar to what you'd expect it to look like. Yeah. And again, I can make one of these pretty fast. It's not that big of a deal. And then for short scrape, I do actually make short scrape reeds for Core and for D'Amore with a little modification. So I'm going to be very upfront and say, yes, I make a short scrape reed, but they look a little different. So for example, here's my short scrape reed. So you see the tip is quite long. For those of you who make short scrape reeds, the tip is quite long. And I also go a bit, instead of going 10 millimeters back on the lay, I go 12. Or sometimes 13 or 14, it depends. It's all about, for me, it's all about function. I got to get the thing to vibrate properly and to do what I want it to do. So let me take, if we switch back to the main camera, Jeanine, you're in charge of this, Jeanine, right? You can
I'm
switch.
in charge. Yep.
Okay, switch back to the main camera. And let me show you what I'm looking for here. Let me actually get a reed that works. Right, like any of us have a reed that actually works. All right, so I'm just going to soak this up. So if you watched the video before, you know that I'm all about function. I want to read, I'm not so concerned with exactly what it looks like. Of course, you know, it should follow the pattern. And who's the symmetry person? Because I agree with you completely. Was it Abby? Are you the symmetry person? Okay.
I'm not, but that was my frog that I was trying to make sure that I was getting to be symmetric. Yeah.
And I actually think that's the reason that profilers work, is because you're not exactly guaranteed symmetry, but a machine can make a more symmetrical read than you ever can by hand. It's just the nature of using a machine. And I have a feeling that if a read is symmetrical left to right, front to back, it's going to vibrate. It's going to at least give you the basics that you need to work. And that's why I think profilers are sort of a boon, is they start you off at least in that right direction. So what do I mean by function? Well, let's see if this is working. So the reed has to peep, meaning just the tip portion needs to be thin enough to vibrate without a lot of pressure. And I'm not blowing hard. I'm just kind of, it's what I call the peep. If you can't do that with not exactly minimal pressure, but not without really forcing, can I make fun of the Berlin guys again? Many short scrape players play on, I think, incredibly stiff reeds. And I know why they do it. They want projection, they want this big sound, but it really works against you. There's nothing wrong with heft in the reed, as long as it doesn't stop you from being expressive and doing what you want to do. A reed can be as hard or soft as you like, although my personal opinion is there's a right resistance for every reed. It just ends up being correct for that reed. But it's got to respond. So that's the first thing. Does it respond? If it doesn't, you're not going to be able to play softly. Does it crow? So generally on a long scrape, I'm looking for C octave. And in fact, there's my C octave. Yay, it works. And actually, it's pretty much the same on short scrapes. Sometimes it's a B, sometimes it's a little higher, sometimes it's a little lower. Again, I'm not so concerned about exactly what it means, but octaves generally mean that the reed is well balanced and that all the parts of the reed are vibrating. So if you're only getting the top crow, it means the back isn't involved at all. And this is the same for short scrape or long scrape, really. Jeanine and I actually had this conversation previously where I think you asked me, Jeanine, do the parts of the reed for long and short scrape do the same things? And I think the answer is yes, in general. The tip is responsible for that initial attack. The transition to the heart is responsible for how quickly it responds. The thickness of the heart is sort of the general mellowness and tone, and the back is are you getting the low vibrations so that you can play low and to make the reed flexible enough to bend the pitch if you need to, and to get the lower range easily without having to force. So like I said, it's all about function. And I want to be able to play high, I want to be able to play low, I want to be able to play accents and attacks. So I'm sure this is going to sound horrible through the Zoom, but
Adam, I need you to fix a setting because we're otherwise not going to hear you.
okay.
Go up into the upper left-hand corner and see if you can hit a button that says turn on original sound.
Okay, is this on my computer or on the phone?
On the computer. Because that's where your microphone is. Okay. While you were peeping, we kind of lose the sound, and that might be something we can fix. Otherwise Zoom changes it.
Okay, I think it might be in the mute thing. It says...
Go to audio settings.
Audio settings, yeah.
And then go to advanced, and when the window opens, go to the bottom right. Do you see advanced?
Advanced, yes.
Click on advanced.
Yep.
There's a check mark you need to set. Show in meeting option to enable original sound from microphone.
Got it.
Okay, and look down, and what do you have by, what does it say next to suppress persistent background noise?
Auto.
Say disable.
Okay, great.
And also intermittent background noise, disable that also. And you can leave echo cancellation on auto.
Okay, so that should work now, right?
Yeah, and then one last thing, go up and when you click out of that, you can make that window go away. Go up to the upper left-hand corner and make sure it's, make sure it says.
Turn off original sound, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
So what I'm looking for is, does it respond? And forgive me, it's 9 o'clock in the morning and I'm not awake. play through the whole range of the oboe. Can I make an accent? So hopefully you heard the duck-a-da-dum, duck-a-da-dum. I'm able to make the difference between the notes. Thank you for letting me show off there a little bit. And yay. So let's get on to the topic at hand, which is profilers and how you use the tools to get to a read that actually does all of those things. So I thought I'd start out by giving you sort of a tour of the various machines that are available and talking about the pros and cons of each. And then let's make a read on the profiler and see how it's different than just doing hand scraping. So I'm going to pull out various machines. Thank you for doing that. Come on. And forgive me, I have to sort of adjust the gooseneck here for the best view. Okay. Can everybody see the profile machine that I've got here? Yeah. Okay, well this is the one that is made by Oboe at Reeds and Stuff. And this is a very, a lot of people have this one. It's very popular. I think Jeanine has one. Many people have them. It's a really solid machine. There it is, works very well. And one of the advantages of these is that you can, the schablone, the template, is interchangeable. So you can choose, I think there's probably something like 50 different templates, patterns that you can use. This one is set up for European short scrape. This is the number 29. This is the earlier version of Lorenzo's Lori template. If people are using the Lori template, that's what this is. And you see that there's the schablone, and there's also this little backstop for the U at the back of the reed, and you can move it up and down. And what's nice about these machines is that they're incredibly adjustable. You can change the template. I have a whole bucket of these things from, again, trying different ones. And also, I have to admit, I have a very long-standing relationship with Oboe. I've been working with him for years. And I've helped develop some of the templates and some of the shaping, the Fassenform. So I like this machine a lot. Uh-oh, something happened. Hold on. Are we back? We're back. Okay, so very nice machine. Works very, very nicely.
Question, Adam, just a question quick. So which one is the template that you're using right now? What's it called?
Well, this is the 29. I'm not sure this is even made anymore. They keep changing them. But it's the one that I would recommend for European short scrape is the L-O-R-Y, Lori. It stands for Lorenzo.
And which ones did you help develop? What are they called?
I have to go, I did a little US 5. And for the shaper templates, there's a bunch. There's the Shap 1, the Shapiro, and the Shap 2, which are whatever.
Adam, can you use them for Baroque oboe as well?
Yes, you can. There are templates for Baroque as well. And they work pretty well. Right now, I don't have them. I've lent them out actually to Luke, but they're available. You can get templates for Baroque oboe. And there's also, you can see that the blade is this little elliptical blade, and the machine is adjustable. You can make the thickness thicker or thinner. The exposure of the blade can be set by using, there's a special micrometer, which I won't demonstrate because that's a whole 20-minute thing in itself of how to adjust the blade. So let's just say this is a sort of the vanilla machine, the very standard profile machine. So other ones, give me just a second. Okay, this guy is the granddaddy of all of them. This is the Rieger. This has been around forever, since probably the 1960s or 70s. They've been making these forever. And it started because bassoonists, like to use profilers, and somebody asked them to make an oboe profile. This is the I don't even know what to call it. It is absolutely the most solid. The thing is built like a tank. The beauty of this is once you get it set, it stays forever. You really don't have to adjust them. It's super heavy. It's anodized brass. This thing probably weighs 5 pounds. The downside is that the template is not interchangeable. It comes from the factory this way, where you can send them a reed and they'll make you a pattern for your reed. But it is what it is. What it is. You can never change it. Really, the only adjustments you can make are how far back you go on the U, on the back of the reed, and the other adjustment is how far the blade is up and down with this guy. And I have a bit of advice. If you make mistakes on tying blanks, or if you have some really terrible cane, don't throw it out. Save it, because you need to make some blanks that you don't care about. Because when you first set up a machine, you have to ruin. Oh, I'm really sorry about that. Somebody keeps pinging me. Let me get back to Zoom here. Okay. What happened, Jeanine?
I don't know. What's the matter? We can still see you.
Yeah, but it's rotated.
That's inside your camera. So if it's stuck, lift it back up to portrait style and then go again. Now now tip it again. Sometimes yeah, there you go. Man, I'm turning into this amazing tech person.
Yeah.
Normally
Okay.
I can't solve these things.
I'm gonna call you when my computer freezes.
Here, let me adjust this one more time. Hopefully we'll make it through the session without any disasters here.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. So basically, keep your blanks, because the thing is that when you set these up, you have to ruin a few blanks to get the right blade exposure and the right thickness. And generally what I'm looking for when I set up a machine is that the thickest part of the heart, that is my reference point. So on an American scrape, the reference point is 0.5 or 0.48, and the very thickest part of the heart. That's what I use the micrometer, and what I want is at this thickest part, right there, that's the measurement I want on the reed. For the European scrape, I'm looking for 0.45. Now I know that's heavy. I know it's heavy because usually on a European scrape, the middle of the heart ends up to about 0.4. Is that what you find, Jeanine, as well?
I haven't measured them in so long. I have a list somewhere, but
Yeah,
Angelica will know. Angelica will know.
Something like this.
0.45.
Yeah, 0.4. Yeah, 0.42, 0.45, something like this is what you expect. So keep your really terrible cane to make test blanks, because you're going to ruin probably at least 5 blanks setting up a machine when you first get it. And then also, if you change the blade or you change the settings, you have to go through this process of setting it up so that you get the right measurement. This is the Rieger machine, great machine. There's one from Cunibert Michel, which is very similar. It's been made forever. They're awesome machines, but they're just not adjustable at all. Okay, then you can go to the other extreme. This is the KGE machine. And again, very, very nice machine, also built like a tank. But again, the Schablone are not terribly interchangeable. They are what they are. This is for a European short scrape. You can adjust the thickness. I tend not to mess around with the KG machine because it's really hard to get back into adjustment. It just is. It takes some doing to get it back into the adjustment so that that reference point is in the right place. Okay, But this is a nice machine. The thing that's a little bit different about it is that it has a circular blade. Instead of an elliptical blade like a gouger, when this gets dull, you loosen the screw and then you rotate the little disc, 10 degrees or 20 degrees, and you get fresh blades. So this blade is like 3 years old and it's still not shot. And I've never had to sharpen it. You just keep rotating it until you've gone 360 degrees. And when you've done that, you throw it out. And the new blade is $90 and you just put a new one in. And I love that because sharpening these things would be really tough. So those are sort of the three big ones that you'll see. There's another one called the Oboe Cube from Reeds and Tools, which is the exact opposite end of the spectrum. It's a wonderful machine, but God help you, to adjusting that thing probably requires a PhD. It's got so many different settings. And I think, again, if you get it right, after lots of experiment, it will be wonderful. But I am too old and too jaded to go through the setup process on that one. I don't have the time for that. And let me show you a fourth one. Here's one made by the Solution Company in Italy. It looks familiar. It looks a lot like the Rieger machine, huh? It's a Rieger copy. I happen to like the Schablone on this better than the Rieger, but it's up to, it's your choice. It's got this has a little bit more deep cut from the heart to the tip. And again, it has the same problems. The template is what it is. It's completely not adjustable. The only thing you can do is adjust the depth of the cut. The advantage on this is that the blade is just like a beveled knife. You can take this off the machine, sharpen it on a stone, and slap it back on, and I will never have to buy a new blade. As long as you're careful sharpening it, it's fine. It's the same thing with the Rieger. Although I will tell you, the Rieger blades are very brittle and they tend to nick really easily. This is a little bit better steel, so I can sharpen this a little bit more easily. It's not as slick a machine, but it's very serviceable, and I do use it. It works pretty well.
Question for you, Adam.
Yeah.
If you have one like that or the Rieger that doesn't have an adjustable template, are you then forced to do more adjustments, knife adjustments to finish the reed if it doesn't exactly match up?
Yeah, I'll tell you, let me talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
So one of the things here, I'm going to randomly pick a machine because otherwise we'll be here forever. Let me zoom out a little bit. Jeanine turned me onto this gooseneck thing with the light. It's awesome. I love it.
It came in time. Good.
It came like yesterday, so I got it. So the answer is yes and no. Here's what I'm going to say about the profiler. None of these, no matter what anybody says, is designed to make a finished reed. They are really intended to make a, let's call it a 70 or 75% finished reed. So if you try to adjust the machine down to your absolute finish tolerances, what I found is that the reeds, one of two things happens. Either you tear the heck out of the tip, it just doesn't work properly, like you'll shred the tips because you're so thin, or you'll damage the blade on the machine if you try to get down to the absolute finish dimension. Or it'll work, but then the reed will play for one day and then completely collapse because you've taken out too much too soon. So a better strategy, and I think didn't Andrew Angus talk about this? A better strategy is to do 2 or 3 scrapings and to get a little bit thinner on each one, just as you would when you do hand scraping. You do a rough scrape, you let it rest a day. Well, some people let it rest a day. Mr. Mack didn't let it rest a day. He used to make a reed and play it. But it's better to do it in stages. So very often what I'll do is I'll set the machine a little bit too heavy. I'll run the reeds through it. Then I might come back the next day and set it a little bit lower, but you're still going to be doing a fair amount of adjusting with the knife. And you sort of have to, because every piece of cane is different. You want to make sure that you're treating the reed as an individual, right? Because the density is different, the porosity is different, the hardness of the cane is different. You have to just go through the adjustments just like you would for a hand scrape reed. There's no such thing as a profiler that you can do it, take the reed off, and it plays. It just doesn't exist. That's a myth.
A question, Adam.
Yeah.
I recall, and I'd have to check this with Andrew, which we'll be able to do because we'll see him again. I believe he told me one time, or I read somewhere, the first pass that he does, the rougher one, the first step, he does just the tip.
Yeah, and I think that's really good. And especially if you have an American template, Vic, you really can't do the whole length of the leg the first day. And in fact, I don't even think it's a good idea at all. I think for the American, like the US 5 template or the American template on the KG machine, it's better to sort of do half the reed forward and then put in the back with the knife. Because it's really hard to go, it's very hard to go uphill and downhill with these machines. They want to go in one direction. They don't want to go, like this. Because you'll often tear the heart. You'll make the heart too thin because the back is quite thin on the profiler. It's better to sort of do the front part of the reed, maybe put it back on. But I end up finishing the reed with the knife all the time anyway, because I think that's what will actually work. So I'll give you an example. So I have a profiler, and I've set it up for American long scrape. So let's come over here, and it's hard to do this, isn't it? Just multiple angles. I need 3 cameras.
We definitely understand. We're getting better at it though. Right, guys?
Yeah. Okay, there's my American long scrape reed. I wanted to, you have to fool it. You have to fool the camera into focusing on the reed. There we go.
Yeah, hold your hand behind it. Sometimes it focuses better if you hold your hand behind it. Except now your phone has gone again.
No, it'll come back. I have to plug it in. The charger is, okay, see.
There you go. Yeah, that looks good.
It's pretty good, but what do you notice? It's actually not symmetric. Now this is one that just came off the profile. You can see that the heart on the lower right-hand corner is thinner than the left, and there's like nothing out of the back yet, right? So this is sort of my day one scrape. I've adjusted it. The whole thing is way too thick. So I'd probably wet this up, let it rest a day, come back, and do it again. And then I'm gonna end up having to go back. This side's better, actually. But they never come out perfectly. They're always a little bit unbalanced, and you always end up going back and fixing them. Okay, so before my camera dies, I'm gonna run in the other room and get a charger so I can plug in. Excuse me just 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves.
Angelica, which profiler do you use?
It's the Wettstein.
And
And
do
in
you
music school we have a Rimpelhook.
how often do you run it through the machine?
2 times. Yes, I do it quick and then let it rest, because always when somebody comes and presents a machine, it does it in one way, and they are so easy on every machine. I've seen it with the cube and with the Rimpelhoek. It's all too easy. I think you have to wait this.
Yeah, you do. Okay, I think I've solved the. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure the battery is working now. Yes, I am good. I believe I am okay, and my phone is not going to die. So let's go ahead and make a read, okay? So I was a very busy boy, and I have lots and lots and lots of blanks you can't really see, but I made a whole rack of blanks because I'm probably going to ruin them all. Which for me, this is not a big deal. I can tie a blank really fast, so I'm not too worried about it. But I will say this: you have to match. It's just like anything else. You have to match the shape that you're using to the template that you're using. Again, if the template was developed with a certain shaper in mind, or a certain range of shapers, you should use something that's similar. Using, let's say, a very narrow shape on the Albee template is a disaster because his thing is like 7.25. It's extremely wide. So you have to use a wider shape that matches the template. Otherwise, you're not going to get anything close to what the person who made the template was after. So I have a whole bunch of blanks here. I'm just going to choose something that's sort of relatively medium. This is hey, good old Gilbert #1. Our favorite Gilbert #1. So I always start out with a dry blank because I think if you try to profile wet cane, it doesn't work. It just tears. It's much better if it's almost not completely dry because it'll crack, but just, dip it in the water and do just a tiny bit. So I'll start off with my blank. I know that, I don't know if I shared this secret with everybody. It's not a secret. I have a little ruler that I've made marks on for common measuring points. So when I tie, I know where 47 is. I know where, I know where the various parts are of the reed, and I've made little black marks so I don't have to keep looking. I don't know if anybody else does something similar. Yes, no, whatever.
Rick does, I think.
Well,
so I know the blank, this one should be about 73.
There's Vic's. He's got a fancy one.
yeah, that's a Covey
Covey.
piece that I got about 1980. And so it's got the measures and you push your staple to there. But I haven't set the heart and tip and
so I've done that, and it's fast. So this one's 72.5 or 73.5, which means I have some to play with. So we're going to do. Should we do American or European scrape? What do you want to do?
Well, let's see. Birgit's not on yet, so I believe Angelica is in the Angelica's in the minority. So we're going with a long scrape.
Okay, I have to change machines. Hold on.
Oh, you got to change machines. Yeah, we got long scrape, long scrape, long scrape.
Okay,
Sorry,
so
Angelica.
machines to look for long scrape. I think if I buy any more of these, my wife will divorce me because I have too many toys. So this is the same KG machine, just set up with an American template. Okay, so what do? We'll scrape a little bit off the tip, and it really doesn't matter. All I want to do is open the thing, right? So I'm just scrape, 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 get the tip thin enough to open. Now, here's something that you can do. Look, the blades for these machines are very expensive. They're not easy to sharpen. So what a lot of people do is they just take the bark off with the knife a little bit. So for example, if I were going to do short scrape, I might actually go ahead and put my U in now. It's hard to see because I'm here, but I would just go ahead and cut the U and just remove the bark. No more than that. It's really just to preserve the blade on the profiling machine. I'm not really taking any cane off, just a little bit of the bark. Yeah, makes sense.
Kind of like you're pre-gouging, but on the bark side.
Exactly, and you don't have to do that. It depends. I'm lazy and I don't want to sharpen these machines. It's just too hard. Once you pull the blade and have to reset them up, it's just difficult. Okay, we need a plaque. Plaque. Does anybody else do that? You put plaques down and then you have no idea what you did with them?
I have magnets everywhere and I stick them to the magnets so I always know where they are.
Mine gets stuck to my iPad. What I have around my iPad, it's magnetic. So I'm always losing them and I have to examine my iPad all the time.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the reed. I do this thing where I stick the plaque in the side. I don't know if anybody else does this. It's sort of nerve-wracking.
I do it. Is that dipped in water already?
Yeah, just dipped. That's it. It's essentially a dry blank because, as I said, it's much better to work dry. Working wet does not work with these. It just doesn't. I wish that it did, but it really doesn't. You want to work as dry as you possibly can. Okay, the thing's open, and I'm going to go ahead and do my first pass. So I put the blank on the plaque, and I'm going to push it a little bit too far. There are little lines, and the one that's at the top is probably, the tip is going to be way too long, but that's okay. I'm going to clip it later anyway. And let's put the clamp in so that the reed doesn't move. Now I have a feeling this piece of cane is garbage. I don't think it's a good cane. It's a little grainy looking. So let's see what happens. So to do this, I wanted work only the tip first. So you go, here, let me take the stop off. But I start very, very close with the blade that's almost right at the tip. I don't go all the way back. If you start all the way back, you will rip the heart off. So don't do that. Start just really at the tip and gently go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Little tiny strokes. Now let me point out something. I am not pressing the carriage down. This carriage is solid brass and it weighs a lot anyway. It has enough pressure on its own without you pressing to scrape properly. So don't press. Your motion is back and forth, never pushing down. Let the carriage do the work. So after I get that very, very tip done, and you can see there are little curls that come off. And don't worry if it didn't go all the way. We'll take that off with the knife later. After I get that very tip going, I can go a little bit farther back. And then you do have to, rotate the barrel. And then finally, you can go a little bit farther back. Now this is an American scrape, so generally speaking, I wouldn't go all the way back the first day, but I'm going to do it anyway just for demonstration purposes.
Are you following you're not following all the way through the tip at this point, are you?
I know I sort of am, I'm just not pressing. Okay. Now, you're going to be very surprised when I show you something. Let me just do the other side quickly. That you would expect this reed to have come out perfectly symmetrical, and it's not. And let's talk about why and what you need to do to sort of fix that. So again, little tiny short strokes, just work on the tip. Once that's looking good, go a little bit farther back. Whoops. Okay, and even I can screw up. If you go too far back, you can push the reed off center. And I sort of go back and forth a few times because you always have sort of, you're always going to miss spots, right? Let me just clean this up a little bit. There's a lot of stuff on here. So I've done that. I'm going to clip it back to something that's a little bit reasonable, let's say 72. And on a European short scrape, I would have gone a longer, I would tie a longer blank because I want to make sure I don't go too short. But I'll use my good old little Rieger clipper here, which I love.
Show us.
By the way, I don't know if people know this little machine, the Rieger clipper. I think this is the best thing since sliced bread. It allows you to take tiny, tiny little clips, and I'll demonstrate that in a little bit. So I've done my first pass. I'm going to go back and put the thing, after it's clipped to about 72, back on the machine. And let's clean up what I did because it's a little bit rough. side.
Are you doing any strategic profiling, or are you getting across all of the surface area?
I'm just doing the whole surface area and sort of trying to go randomly so that I get all the spots. And that's why sometimes you have to take it off and put it back on a couple of times because you'll miss things. Okay, now I noticed something funny about this blank. And here's my other big point. You have to make a truly excellent blank to use the profiler well. And what I mean by that is you didn't make any mistakes. You tied it on perfectly. The cane was gouged properly, exactly in the middle. Yeah, you didn't like have one part thicker and thinner. And I noticed that it's actually taken a lot more off the left side than it has off the right, which means I picked a piece of cane that was improperly gouged. So the profiler will show you, just when you're working, if you've made mistakes in previous steps. It'll show you if you're tied off axis, meaning it's not lined up with the ellipse, because again, one side will sit higher than the other. If the gouge is not perfect, it'll show you. Let's do a little experiment now. So I know, for example, that it should be symmetric, right? Well, guess what? It's not focusing perfectly, but
Hold your hand behind it.
hold on. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. Look at that heart. Is it symmetric?
No.
No, it's not. It's not. And it's sort of par for the course. You will have to go back and you'll have to adjust these things by hand with the knife, because the profiler is never perfect. It gets you, let's say, 70% of the way there. This is a basic scrape, right? It has a tip, it has a heart, it has a back, and that's sort of about it. And I bet you actually, if we played this, it would crow. Yeah, I mean, it works, right? Sort of. The tip is too long and too thick, but it's got all of the basic, where's my dot? Thanks for the dot trick.
Oh, you got a dot.
Here, we're gonna do this. But it's got all the basic parts. It has a heart, it has a tip, it has a spine. Vic, do you see it looks legitimately like a first day American scrape reed. Now, yes, I could adjust the blade thinner so that it did more. But again, my experience is that isn't great. This is actually pretty good. It's got all the parts. Now, if you were going to finish this as an American, I'm sure, I mean, Vic, you tell me, what would you do? I know what I would do.
I'd probably get a better gouged piece of cane to start with. I would taper the tip more. The tip of the tip looks way too thick, so there's not going to be any response. The back, I work with a catch, so I'd probably be wanting to bring the back forward with thin, and I'd have to feel how it felt with the vibrations going tip through heart to feel how it's responding.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so basically, here's my main point. You have a 70% finished reed, and you have it in 3 minutes, which is pretty amazing. And especially if you're making a lot of reeds, or you're making reeds for your students, or even for yourself, having the consistency of having a pile of these ready to go. And very often I'll do that. I'll profile up like 20 reeds and just stick them in a case. And whenever I need a reed, I can take it out and I know what I need to do to finish this. It's as you said, the first thing is that the transition from the heart to the tip is too thick. And this is absolutely true on the European templates as well. If you set them high, that this go zone, the transition zone, if I do it backwards, is too thick and you need to grade this down. And there's too much, there's not enough out of the back, but for me, that's good. I like a really heavy back anyway. And to finish this, all I would really need to do, I mean, I can do it now. I bet you I can do it in like 45 seconds. I'll thin that transition. I know it's really hard to see what I'm scraping. You have to sort of trust me here.
Can you bring your hands closer to you? Then we can see a little bit better.
Probably a phone in the way.
Well, all I'm really doing is that I'm going to thin this transition, right? And for my day one scrape, all I really want is a good peep and a decent crow. And then I would just let the things rest. And really, it's just the same with European scrape. I would just make sure the reed is functioning at a basic level, and then I'd put it aside because it's going to change. You know, the cane swells, it gets harder as it sits. They never get softer, huh? Well, they do after you play them, but initially they just get harder and harder.
I have two questions, Adam, and one of them is important before you turn that over and do the other side. I'm curious about how thick this particular profile preparation is at the tip, for example. So you haven't adjusted that side yet, I don't think.
No, we'll measure it. So on the profiler, it came off at point. Well, it's about point one. It's pretty thin.
How much is it?
Well,
0.1?
Yeah, 0.1 off the profiler.
Yeah.
So, you know, it doesn't need to be a whole lot thinner than that, but a little bit. On the very, so look, what do I get right off the profiler? I bet you the middle is at 0.5. Haha. Am I right? Yep. So the machine is properly adjusted. And again, the thickest part of the heart is my reference point. That's what I'm measuring when I adjust it up and down. Because if you try to do it on the tip, it's never going to work. Use the middle of the heart as your adjustment point.
Got it. So that brings me to another question. I feel like if I use the profiler, the reeds come out way too open. So I can take exactly the same reeds and make them by hand, and the opening is good. And I can manipulate that opening. Do you find also that the reeds that you profile tend to be gaping?
They can, because of course the plaque is forcing the reed apart. That's another reason why I like to work almost dry, because that memory effect will be worse the wetter the cane is.
Wow, okay.
So I think if you work pretty dry and then you soak the reed up and kind of squash it down again, you won't have the problem.
Yeah.
At least that's what I think.
I'll try it.
It depends. Some are better than others. Also, Udo has different plaques. He has a thin plaque you can get now that is not so thick and won't really distort things as much.
I have two plaques, one a wide one for the Baroque and a regular one.
Yeah, he's got like 10 different models now. You just ask him. Okay, so let's see what I got. So I thinned the tip and I made the transition a little bit better. And the tip is still way too long, but let's check functionality. I mean, it is sort of gaping. Look at that hole. Look at that opening. It's huge. So let's just squash it down. You know, squash it down into submission. Does it peep? Yay. Does it crow? Well, like a duck, right? It's because the tip is too long and now too thin. So let me show you the trick with the Rieger clipper. And here's where I stop for day one. What I like to do, I use the clipper for two reasons. One, I'm in my 50s and I can't see well enough to do it with a razor blade anymore. But also this is much more precise. And the Rieger I like because it makes one blade ever so slightly longer than the other, which is an American thing, I know. But the longer blade should be on the top. So what I do is I push it up against the cutting barrel so that it's absolutely flush. I lift the little gate here, and then I'm able to push it up just a little bit and take off the tiniest, I don't even know if you can see it. It's like the thickness of a hair. See on my finger?
Wow.
You can take off nothing with this. And it's not true of Udo's. It's not true of the Kunabir Michel, no matter what he says. It just isn't. This is the best clipper on the market, folks. I'm sorry. I am, and I'm not getting a kickback from George Rieger on this, but I love this thing. I think it's great. So you can take nothing. So what I do at this point is I just keep clipping it back until the crow falls in line. Does it crow? Nope. And just keep taking tiny little clips. And I would do exactly the same thing on a short scrape reed, because when you come off the profiler, the tip is too long. It's always too long. That's almost there, right? Is that a B or a C? I think it's a B. And as soon as you sort of lose the lower crow, where the lower crow comes into line, hey, octave Cs. I would stop and put this thing away for a day, because it has a basic scrape. It's functioning, meaning, you know, it's playing high and low. It probably sounds horrible. Should we try to play it and see what it sounds like?
Yeah.
Now, okay, it's probably going to be terrible. It's not terrible, it's just kind of honky, kind of unfinished and loud and not very refined. But it does play, right? No, it's okay. I mean, I wouldn't go out and play in public on this thing, but it functions. And again, now it's all just the adjustments. My rails are a little too thick. And again, that depends on the cane density. Sometimes it'll take more, sometimes it'll take less. Is it balanced? Well, no, the right side is thinner than the left. Just because. Maybe I had an error with the gouging. And I would go fix that. The back is still a little bit too heavy. And again, I would fix this.
I do make a note, because we were talking about the order of priorities, and Janet Engel had made a list that I posted. That, Abby, did you notice that that neither Vic nor Adam had as a top priority to correct that symmetry that he noticed right away? So that was less important to him than he get the tip cleaned out. So I thought this was really interesting. Abby, I also want to ask you to do something, because my computer is very slow because I'm hosting this meeting. I think someone posted in the topics a few questions for Adam, and we're over time, but maybe we could just, if you can pull those up, because my Facebook is just not cooperating.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we go back to the computer view, Jeanine?
Sure.
I can sort of take my phone offline here.
Am I the only one that posted? I guess I don't see anyone else posting any comments. I don't know. I think some you answered in the interview, but I'll go through them one by one so that I don't forget anything. The first one was that I've heard a lot of people with lots of pros and cons. Don't use a profiler. Do use a profiler. Don't do. When did you personally start using a profiler? And what was the reason for you to start using it?
Yeah, it was desperation. I just needed to make a lot of reeds. And you know, when I'm not playing in an orchestra now, but when I was a younger fellow, that's what I did. That was my job. And you know, you got to have reeds every day. And I couldn't do what my teachers did. One of my teachers was, again, grab and go. He would just play on anything. I couldn't really do that. The other of my teacher was fanatical and would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and make reeds, and I really couldn't do that. So I just decided I needed a solution where I could get things done quickly and have something that was serviceable. So I started using the Rieger profiler probably 25 years ago. And at that time, they didn't make one with an American profile. I had to order it special, and it wasn't that successful. I actually ended up using the short scrape Schablona and then modifying it by hand, and it worked better for me. And I think the Rieger people were a little bit appalled when I sent the thing in for maintenance, but you know, it worked for me.
When you then started using the profiler, what did you notice about your blanks? Because when you go, you kept saying your blank has to be exactly perfect for the profiler. Did you notice, and did you have to change your blanks when you were doing it by hand to when you're doing the profiler?
I had to
What were the topics that you
not be so careful about having things exactly on axis. You know, aligning the arc of the tube with the arc of the reed. That's really vital. You really have to do that correctly, and it can't be off center. It has to be absolutely straight. So you get really good at making really straight, perfectly tied blanks really fast, because otherwise they just sort of self-destruct on the profiler. Like one side will be like so much out that it's unusable, and the other side will be so thick that it doesn't balance, or you'll just tear the hell out of it. But the other thing is you have to use fairly hard cane. You can't get away with using softer cane on the profiler. Like, I love Madeir cane, but it tends to be very soft, right? It's great for Baroque. I think it's not so good for, well, you choose what you choose, right? For me, it makes wonderful reeds if I can use it by hand. Madeir or the Guise, the Rose du Var, doesn't work on the profiler because it's too soft. And it just shreds. It doesn't work. I don't know why that is, but you're better off with harder cane on the profiler.
Okay. For yourself, do you, for your canes, for your reeds, always use the profiler? And when not, why don't you use it?
Oh, okay. Well, truth time, right? Okay, for the modern reeds, I always use the profiler.
Okay.
For the Baroque reeds, I don't. I haven't found that the templates that I have for the Uda machine, even though there are people who do it very successfully, and there's a Bernardini template, which is, you know, it's good. And actually, there's this Bucher machine that Jürgen has. You know this one, Jeanine? It's this Bucher, yeah. There's this $5,000. It's this crazy like commercial reed making machine, and there's a Baroque template for it, which actually makes really nice reeds. You can, well, I'm not going to plug anybody. There is a professional reed maker who sells reeds from this machine, and they work great for Baroque. What I've found is that the templates that are available I don't like, and to be honest, look, Baroque reeds are in some ways a lot less finished than modern reeds. It's bigger, the tolerances aren't quite as tight, and I can find that I can scrape a Baroque reed by hand in a couple of minutes and get what I want. And what I'm looking for is different than what a lot of other people are looking for, because I'm both a modern oboist and period instrument person. I have to make something that's sort of halfway in between what many people would consider to be a classic Baroque reed. And I make something that looks a little bit more like a modern American reed, but not really. It has a teardrop shaped heart in the middle with no great separation between back and heart. It's very, very blended. And I can't do that on the machine. I have to do it by hand.
Okay. How many profilers and how many templates do you have?
Way too many.
Right now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 profilers and a drawer full of templates. I know, it's insane. It's not.
And do you use them all in the last month? How many different profilers and how many different templates did you actually use?
Okay, I used the reeds and stuff, 29, and I used the KG American. Those are the 2 I used in the last month.
Okay.
I
thought that was just.
I didn't change the templates. I left them the same.
Okay. And then the last question you had already answered, because I said, how much work do you have once the reed comes out? And you already said you had 70%, that the reed was at about 70% when it came out of the profiler.
Yeah, that's about right. 70,
Okay.
80. It depends, but yeah, it's certainly not finished. Like I said, you can do that. You can set the profiler for absolute final measurements, And if you're lucky, it'll come off the reed and it'll play almost finished. And it's more true of the KG machine. The KG machine is a little bit more accurate than the others, a little bit. But what I find is that those reeds die very, very soon. They don't last. You play for a day and that's it.
Okay, interesting.
Again, I think the cane is like a shock thing, right? There's like a shock from taking all this cane out. You have to let the thing relax a little bit. The material has to relax before you go back and take more. If you try to make it too fast, it just doesn't work.
Okay, interesting. Okay, those were the questions that I had thought about. I don't use a profiler, so I was just trying to think of questions off the top of my head. Does anyone else in the group have questions?
I just want to chime in here and give Birgit a short opportunity to introduce herself. She told me ahead of time that she'd be coming a little bit later. So Birgit, we introduced ourselves, we said our name, where you are and what oboes you play and what kind of scrape.
Okay, so I'm Birgit. I live close to Frankfurt, so close to Jeanine too. And I am playing Marigot, just Marigot.
Yep.
And and I'm playing in a music school orchestra, second oboe. And I have a short scrape. Yeah.
Okay, so you have the problem of having to play all those low C sharps and be in tune with the first player. I don't know that people realize what a tough job playing second oboe is. I think it's harder. A really good second oboe player, here's the thing. If you do your job right, nobody knows you're there. Totally ungrateful position because you have to be so skilled and have so much control. And when you do it right and play in tune and match the sound, you are invisible. And that is just so sad.
Actually, the only person who appreciates you is the principal oboe.
Oh, yeah.
Life was so much better.
Yeah, that's about it. You gotta be buddies with your principal. But
I almost fell off my chair one time. I was playing with Boston Baroque. I was playing second oboe on Messiah.
Oh my.
And I had two people come up to me and say, "Wow, you're such a great player." And I'm like, "What? You heard me?"
Were you playing with Gonzalo? Who was playing with you?
With Boston Baroque, that Mark? I guess it was Mark.
Oh, Mark. Yeah, Mark. Okay.
With Mark. Or
Cool.
I think so. Or was it? Might have been with Deborah. I'm not sure. I'll have to look. I played for like 3 or 4 years. Did their Messiah with them.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, both of those people are marvelous players, so it's a joy to play with marvelous players, right? You play. I mean, here's the other thing: you play with a good player, you come up to their level. If you're not there, you have to because you have no choice.
I told everyone in this group that I explained to them how I keep track of my reeds, and one of the things that I make note of is where and when and what I performed on a reed and who I played it with and what part, because I find that my reeds feel like if I play with Deborah Nagy, this reed is just big and juicy and wonderful, and I don't know, my reeds kind of take on that quality of playing that they do. So we're way over time. So I want to ask one more time if there's any questions for today. We don't have to ask them all for today. We do get to see Adam again. And as you see, he's quite qualified to answer many, many questions, not just about profilers, because I know that the majority of you are not using profilers. So I think it's just me, Vic, and Angelica using profilers. So no, Vic doesn't use one either. He's all by hand.
Okay, well, here's the thing. For the next session, if you don't want to focus on the machines, we have alternate things we can do. We can do what do you do on the second day, and what's the adjustment routine for both short and long scrape. I'd be very happy to do that because that's maybe a little bit more interesting.
I would also like to ask you to be prepared to profile a short scrape reed.
Yeah, sure.
Which you can do very quickly and still do that second. In fact, I think it might be very interesting to see a short scrape style finish. So maybe if I might ask you to be prepared with a second day read that's a short scrape and a second
it's no problem. I can do the Julia Child. Remember, do people know who Julia Child was? She was a chef on WGBH Boston TV, and she would always have the second prepared dish. She would show you how to cook the thing, and it was a disaster. It would fall completely apart. She'd drop the chicken on the floor. And then she'd say, oh, but look, here in the oven, I have the finished dish, and isn't it beautiful? So I can do that. I can pre-prepare some beautiful examples, a la Julia Child.
Are there any other questions from the dynamic reed makers for?
I would have one small question, because I thought it was very interesting in the interview earlier, because I'm in Germany. I play on the long scrape, and I also play the English horn a lot in a wind symphony orchestra. And you said you used a short scrape English horn reed, and I thought that was a very interesting topic. What made you? Yeah, the background behind that.
I'll tell you why. English horn in the orchestra. Look, English horn is not a loud instrument. It doesn't carry well. It just doesn't. It's a soft instrument. It doesn't have the projection power that it is. And also, I don't like having to fight with the reed. And I think the mistake that a lot of oboe players need to make, someone's really jangling things there, is that they balance an English horn reed like they would a modern oboe. So there's the same amount out of the back that they would normally take on a modern oboe. And it's even the same on even short scrape reed. And I think that's a mistake. If you take too much out of the back on an English horn reed, the thing just collapses. You have to use a wire. It's the upper register is sort of flat and flabby. The G and A and B get saggy sounding. They don't play in tune. And so I think for English horn, it's better to, it's not necessarily better. You can make a short scrape reed that's well balanced, that doesn't have a wire, that's playing and plays relatively well in tune, isn't sagging in the upper register because there's too much out of the back or because the tip is too long. And it's true, I think, that that American scrape English horn reeds tend to go people tend to go too far. And even a professional English horn player will, I think they just go too far. I think you have to leave more. I think you have to bring your reeds along a little bit more carefully than you do with oboe. And I just don't like wires. As a young teenager, I got a wire through the lip. And that was it. At 15, I decided I'm never putting a wire on a reed again. And yes, you can put the Teflon band and it's fine, but the truth is, look, if you scrape the reed properly, if the gouge is correct, if you don't take too much out of the back and the heart to begin with, you do not need a wire. I find it personally very limiting. I think what it does is you have this reed with all of these colors, and as soon as you take a lot out, the pitch sags. You've got to put that wire on to push things back up and keep things controlled at the tip, and then you've lost 20-30% of the possibility that's in that reed. So I don't like that. I would rather make a fairly hefty short scrape reed for core, not too heavy, not so I can't play it, but heavier than I would normally for regular soprano oboe. For me, it's practical.
We have Maria has her hand
Thank you.
up.
Good. Adam, since you like your machines and your tools so much, can you recommend a good gouger? Because I have the feeling I'm going to be experimenting with the cane that grows in Colombia.
Oh, sure. Yes, in a lot of ways, there are so many that are excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the reeds and stuff, circular gouger, the regular one with the round blade is marvelous.
Okay.
Great machine, super easy to adjust. It's idiot proof. I can adjust it. It's so simple. I like that machine a lot. It's not cheap. It's something like, like 1,400 euros, something like
Pretty
this.
expensive. I'll post a link to it.
A pretty expensive machine, but look, it's great. The beds and blades are interchangeable. So if you decide you want to go more circular or more elliptical, it's easy to change the parts to do that. And Udo he's very good about that. If you really want to swap something out, he'll let you when you first buy the machine. The Cunibert-Michel gouger is marvelous. It's the Rolls Royce of gougers. I don't know what the waiting list is. It's probably pretty long. You make a long scrape or a short scrape reed?
Long.
Okay, long.
She makes a Baroque reed. She makes Baroque reeds.
Oh, Baroque reeds. Okay, so for Baroque, you're a little bit more limited. So the Udo Hang machine, for Baroque reeds, I recommend the 16.5 millimeter blade and bed. I know that sounds really big, but because it's a circle, the blade is a circle, you have to use a larger diameter to get the sides to be thin enough so that the reed opening is not just huge and round. So 16.5, he'll even make you a 16.75 blade, and you can use a 16 millimeter bed on the Udo Hang machine for Baroque. Cunibert-Michel makes one again. I think it only goes up to 15, but if you use slightly smaller diameter cane, it's fine. For Baroque gougers, those are really your two options. For modern gougers, there's like 20 that are out there. They're all good. I will say, I'll make a mention about the In-A-Lady gouger. Do people know this machine? It's like it has a crank, and you kind of push the reed past, the cane goes past the blade rather than a carriage moving. Personally, I'm not a fan. It works. It's a great pre-gouger, but I think that the reeds made on it, they lack character. They don't have a lot of depth. They just sort of work. I don't know why this is. Maybe because the cane is being torn rather than being planed. But it works. There are some people who love it. I'm not a fan.
It's a great travel machine because it weighs nothing.
Nothing.
Like this big and weighs nothing.
And the other thing you have to keep in mind is, for those of you who are making European reeds as opposed to American reeds, the ratio is different. For European reeds, you want the sides of the cane to be quite a bit thinner. So maybe 60 in the middle and 40 or even 38 on the sides, depends. Because the blank has to collapse properly. On an American reed, you want the thicker sides, even as much as some people do 60 in the middle and 50.50 millimeter on the side, to keep the reed open, because Americans take so much out of the channels around the heart, around the spine, that the reed tends to collapse. So it's all about balancing what you do with the scrape. If you tried to make a European scrape reed on cane set up for an American gouger, you'd be very open and it'd be very hard. You really have to have the right setup for the type of reed that you're making. The Gilbert machine is wonderful as a sort of middle of the road. It's exactly a 60-45 vanilla, completely unadjustable machine. It does its one thing and it does it great. Who else is making a gouger these days, Jeanine? There's the Opus 1 gouger, that's very nice. There are the old graph gougers, which are what are called, they're double radius or off-center gougers. So a gouger can be set up so that the blade goes right down the middle of the cane and both sides are symmetric, or it can be set up so that the blade is going slightly to one side, and then you gouge most of the way and then you turn the piece of cane around, and what you get is a little bit of a spine built into the inside of the reed. It's whatever you like. That works better for American, but I know European players who use double radius gouge and it works fine. So it's just what you like.
Ross, you didn't mention anything about
The Ross machine. The Ross machine is a symmetric gouger. It's single radius gouger. And Phil, the son, is still making them. So they're very nice machines, and they're only about 1,000 US, so about 800 euro. Sort of a bargain as machines.
I adore my Ross.
Yeah, they're nice. And again, there isn't much to adjust. They're very simple, right? You just sort of go.
Yeah, because it's single radius, it just, nothing to it. It's either too thick or right on.
So, there are lots of good ones out there, but if you need a Baroque gouger, it's only the two that are really available, the Cunibert-Michel and the Udo Hang. I think Willy Wettstein, you know this guy, Jeanine?
Wettstein.
He might make one. I'm not sure.
Wait, how do you spell it? W-H-E-T?
W-E-T-T. Stien. I
Yeah,
have to look it up.
probably.
Yeah. So he makes very nice tools too. He makes a gouger. It's high quality. I think you can order it with a 15 or 16 millimeter blade and bed or Baroque.
Good, thank you.
All right, folks, we got to wrap it up because my son is turned loose somewhere in the town and I got to go find him.
Okay. Very good. Okay, well,
Perfect.
I'm sure the neighbors would have called if there was anything wrong, but this was fantastic, Adam. I think for those people who don't have the profiling machines, it's still very interesting to see your process. And yeah, we are collecting we have a place where we're collecting questions, which you have no obligation to be involved in the forum that we have. So, but we are collecting questions. So I might, if we have a lot, maybe I'll send them ahead of time so you know a little bit how to prepare for the day.
Sure. Let me end with one thing. So if you do use the Udo Hang Gouger for American scrape, I think the Klein and the Alex are the best Schablona to get. The US5 is also very serviceable, if I do say so myself. And if you're using for American scrape, if you're using short scrape on the Udo's machine, I like the Lory, L-O-R-Y template a lot. I think it's very nice. And also the, what's his name? German player. You know what? I'll put it in the chat. There's another one that I like that really works very, very nicely. And you know, you sort of can't go wrong. There's so many of them to choose from. They work great, but that's not to say that the other makers don't have good designs. They do. And actually, Kunibir Michel will make you a custom Schablona if you give them a couple of reeds. It's a husband and wife team now. Michelle passed away a while ago, but the company was taken over by a couple, and they do a fabulous job. They're really, really good machinists. But they'll make you a custom template if you want, and it's the same price. They don't charge you any extra. They're very, very gracious about this. All right. So thank you very much, and I'll see you guys in a few weeks. And please do let me know if you have questions. Okay.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Bye.
Adam. It was
Bye.
such a pleasure. And
Yep.
I'll see the rest of you tomorrow. And enjoy your start of your day now, Adam.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.